The boss of bosses, the man who structured the Mexican cartel system, Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo. Chapter 1. What existed before the guns, northwestern Mexico, Sinaloa. The land is harsh, the soil is dry. For decades, this region stood on the margins of central government attention. Poverty here was not temporary, it was structural. Legal agriculture alone was rarely enough to survive. For generations, poppy and marijuana crops functioned as what locals called cash crops. During World War II, the United States informally tolerated Mexican opium production for medical morphine supplies. From the beginning, the line between legal and illegal was never completely clear. It was in this environment, in 1946, that Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo was born. His childhood was not cinematic. There were no dramatic shootouts or visible empires, but he learned something essential. Power does not always come from a gun. Power often moves quietly, in rooms most people never see. By the time he reached adulthood, Sinaloa already possessed informal smuggling networks. Drugs were not just contraband, they were part of a cross border economic structure. And Gallardo grew up watching that structure operate. Chapter 2. What the uniform taught him as a young man, Gallardo joined the Mexican Federal Judicial Police. For many, it was simply employment. For him, it was proximity to power. He served in positions that brought him close to political elites. He observed how enforcement actually functioned. Some raids were aggressive and public. Others quietly disappeared. Some arrests ended in prosecution. Others ended in release. He began to understand something fundamental. Laws exist, but enforcement is selective, and selectivity is influenced by money. Inside the police structure, he learned how institutions protect themselves, how corruption becomes normalized, how silence is negotiated. He was not yet building a criminal empire, but he was studying the architecture of authority. Later, that knowledge would become his greatest asset. Chapter 3. Unifying a Fragmented Market. By the late 1970s, marijuana demand in the United States had surged dramatically. The counterculture era had reshaped consumption patterns. Supply needed organization. At that time, trafficking groups in Mexico were regional and fragmented. Competition often resulted in unnecessary violence and instability. Gallardo saw inefficiency where others saw chaos. He believed consolidation would reduce risk. He brought together key figures from Sinaloa, including Rafael Caro Quintero and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo. They relocated their center of operations to Guadalajara, a politically stable city with strong institutional connections. What they built became known as the Guadalajara Cartel. This was not a loose alliance, it was structured. They divided cultivation zones, standardized transportation routes, centralized border coordination, systematized political payments. The organization operated less like a gang and more like a vertically integrated enterprise. This model would later define the blueprint for nearly every major Mexican cartel. Chapter 4. The Colombian Connection. In the early 1980s, Colombian cartels faced increasing pressure from U.S. enforcement. Traditional Caribbean smuggling routes became riskier. They needed a new corridor. Mexico offered geography. Gallardo offered structure. Initially, Mexican traffickers served as transport intermediaries. They were paid in cash, but Gallardo changed the terms. Instead of flat transport fees, he negotiated payment in product percentage. That shift altered the balance of power. Mexican organizations moved from subcontractors to distribution controllers. Revenue expanded exponentially, but so did corruption. Bribes extended beyond local police into federal systems. Political actors became embedded in the flow of money. The structure hardened, and it grew. Chapter 5. The Camarena Case. In 1985, DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena played a role in exposing large marijuana plantations in Mexico. The discovery caused major financial losses. Soon after, he was abducted. Days later, his body was found. The case triggered international outrage. The United States responded with significant pressure: border slowdowns, diplomatic escalation, expanded intelligence operations. The fragile equilibrium between corruption and discretion collapsed. Mexico could no longer manage the situation quietly. Gallardo, as the central coordinator of the cartel, became a focal point of investigation. Whether directly responsible for operational decisions or not, he was the structural head. The system he helped build was now exposed. Internal fractures began forming. Silence no longer guaranteed protection. Chapter 6: Arrest and Fragmentation. In 1989, Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo was arrested, but arrest did not immediately dismantle his influence. From prison, he attempted to maintain coordination. His final major decision was structural division. He partitioned territories among emerging leaders: Tijuana, Juarez, Sinaloa. The intention was stability. The result was fragmentation. Without centralized arbitration, territorial competition intensified. Former partners became rivals. Rivalries escalated, and escalation brought violence. Chapter 7: The Era of Uncontrolled Conflict. Throughout the 1990s and into the 2000s, Mexico entered a prolonged period of cartel warfare: public executions, mass disappearances, cycles of retaliation. In 2006, the Mexican government deployed the military in large-scale anti-cartel operations. Violence did not diminish, it multiplied. Estimates suggest hundreds of thousands of deaths over the following years. Gallardo, aging behind prison walls, watched from isolation as the structure he designed evolved beyond control. He was not a battlefield commander. He did not become famous for visible brutality. His influence was administrative, organizational, systemic, and systems often outlive their creators. Ending crime is often reduced to a single villain, but reality is structural. Demand existed in the north. Supply existed in the south. The border became a corridor. Corruption became lubrication. Silence became currency. Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo did not invent drug trafficking. He organized it. He formalized it. He systematized it. He was not a hero, not a revolutionary. He was a structural architect of criminal enterprise, and the architecture remains. The cost is still being paid.